Most men wake up too late in life, not from sleep, from something deeper. The long, comfortable, perfectly reasonable sleep of a life lived mostly on autopilot. Moving through the days, meeting the obligations, doing what was required, without ever quite stopping to ask if the life being lived was actually theirs. If you're watching this, is something brought you here, you might already be in the middle of that awakening. And so like the video if something resonates, and subscribe if you want to keep having this conversation. This is a space for men who are paying attention. I want to describe what the waking actually feels like, because it's not what most people expect. It's not dramatic, not a revelation, not the kind of moment you'd recognize if you were waiting for something cinematic. It's quieter, more like the way a room comes into focus when your eyes finally adjust to the light. Nothing changed. The room was always there. But suddenly you can see it, the shape of it, the arrangement of things, what's there and what's missing. And the waking up I'm talking about, the one that comes to men in midlife, usually, is that quality of seeing. The life was always there. The people in it, the choices already made, the version of yourself already assembled. But suddenly, or gradually over years, you start to actually see it. Not just inhabit it, see it. I think most men have a moment like this. A moment when the life that was running on automatic becomes visible as something chosen. Or not chosen. That's often the harder part. That realization that a significant portion of the life was assembled from default settings, from what was expected, what was available, what made sense to the people around you at the time you were making the decisions. Not bad decisions, not wrong ones, just decisions made before you had the clarity to make them more deliberately. And the waking is the moment that clarity arrives, not fully, not permanently, not with a complete understanding of everything. Just enough clarity to see the difference between the life you were given and the life you would choose. Between the man you became by default and the man you might still become on purpose. But here is the strange part. Most men, when the waking begins, experience it as a crisis. The disorientation, the questioning, the sudden visibility of a life that was more comfortable when it was invisible. And so they try to go back to sleep. More work, more distraction, more noise, anything to restore the comfortable opacity of the life that didn't ask us so many questions. But most men misunderstand this completely, because the waking isn't the problem. The waking is the gift. The crisis feeling, the vertigo of seeing your life clearly for the first time is not evidence that something has gone wrong. It's evidence that something has gone right. A man who can see his life clearly is a man who can do something with what he sees. A man who is asleep has no such option. He just keeps moving in the direction that was set for him by forces he never examined, toward destinations he never fully chose. Here is something I find important. The waking up that happens in midlife is almost never a single moment. It's a series of cracks, small fractures in the surface of the automatic life through which something more honest starts to show. A conversation that unexpectedly goes somewhere real. a walk alone, where a thought arrives that refuses to be rejected. A moment with someone you love, where you feel, with unusual clarity, how much time has been spent in the same room without being genuinely present. A birthday, a diagnosis, a death, the kind of event that strips the insulation of the ordinary assumptions. Each one is a crack, and through each crack, the same thing starts to become visible. The gap between the life being lived and the life that is possible. Between the man showing up every day and the man who exists underneath the showing up. And this is where things become interesting. Because the gap is not condemnation. It's a compass. Every man who wakes up, every man who can see the gap clearly, has been handed a direction. Not a destination, a direction toward more honesty, more presence, more alignment between the life and the self. That direction is always available, as long as the eyes are open to see it. And something changes after 40 and after 50 in how available the waking is. When you're younger, the sleep is deeper. The momentum of building, the drive, the ambition, the necessary noise of establishing yourself makes it easier to stay on the surface. There's always somewhere to be, always something to achieve, always a next phase to move toward. The automatic life runs on a kind of fuel that keeps the questions at a comfortable distance. But after 40 and after 50, the fuel changes. The ambition that made the noise possible starts to quiet. And in that quiet, in the space between the end of proving and the beginning of whatever comes next, the questions get louder. Not because something went wrong, because there's finally enough stillness for them to be heard. And most men, when the stillness arrives, don't know what to do with it. They spent 20 years filling every quiet moment with the next task, the next problem, the next version of the future. And now the quiet is just there. And the question in it are just there. And the life, seen without the noise, seen as it actually is asking to be taken seriously. Here is what waking up actually means. Not a transformation, not a reinvention. A change in the quality of relationship between a man and his own life. Before the waking, the life is something that happens to him. Events occur, time passes, decisions get made. But he is mostly reactive, responding to what comes rather than choosing what to move toward. After the waking, the relationship changes. Not completely, not all at once, but the man starts to become an author rather than a character. He starts to notice when he is on autopilot, when the default setting is running, instead of a genuine choice. He starts to ask the questions that the automatic life was designed to prevent him from asking. Is this how I want to spend my day? Is this the version of myself I want to be in this conversation? Is this direction the one I've been moving in, actually, where I want to go? These are small questions that don't require a crisis. They don't demand a dramatic answer. They just require a man who is awake enough to ask them and willing enough to sit with the answers, even when the answers are uncomfortable. That's all the waking is. The willingness to see clearly and the courage to do something, even something small, with what you see. I want to ask you something, and I mean this genuinely. Tell me in the comments, what woke you up? Not the philosophical version, your version, the specific thing, the moment, the conversation, the event, the thought that arrived one morning and wouldn't leave, that began to change the quality of how you saw your life. Because I think for every man who is watching this, there was something, a first crack. And naming it, saying it out loud, even here, even briefly, matters. Not just for me to read, for you to hear yourself say it. Because the waking becomes more real the more honestly it's named. So, tell me, what woke you up? Most men wake up too late in life. But I want to be precise about what too late means. Because it doesn't mean there's nothing left to do. It doesn't mean the years ahead are too few to matter. It doesn't mean the people still in your life are beyond being genuinely reached. It doesn't mean the version of yourself that could live more honestly, more presently, more deliberately is somehow no longer available. Too late means this. It means a man spent more years than necessary inside a life he never fully examined, making choices by default that could have been made by design, being present in body while absent in the ways that counted, carrying the weight of the story that was never entirely his, without ever stopping to question whose story it was. That's what too late means. And the moment the man stops, genuinely stops, looks at the life clearly, and decides to do something different with what remains, it stops being too late. Right then, in that moment, it stops. I think about the men who are just waking up. Maybe for the first time. Maybe for the third or the fourth time. After going back to sleep in between. It doesn't matter how many times the waking was delayed. What matters is what happens next. whether the clarity is honored, whether the questions are taken seriously, whether the man decides quietly, without drama, that the remaining years deserve a different quality of attention that the ones that already passed. That decision, small as it sounds, that is everything.